You know, some people just can't mind their own business. And in my neighborhood, that someone was Karen. She was the type of person who believed every square inch of the community belonged to her, whether it was the sidewalk, the mailbox, or even, as I would soon find out, my brand new EV charger. I had just installed it outside my garage. A shiny, modern unit, clean, efficient, and mine. It wasn't cheap, and it wasn't some luxury toy. It was something I worked hard for, something I needed. But to Karen? Well, she thought it was just another amenity, like a public drinking fountain, free for anyone who wanted a sip of electricity. The first time I noticed, I brushed it off. My charging cable was hanging loose one morning with a little dirt on the ground. Strange, but maybe I hadn't wrapped it properly the night before. I didn't think much of it, until I checked my app. The usage history revealed something I couldn't ignore. Overnight charging sessions I had never initiated. Someone was siphoning my power, and then I remembered Karen, the same neighbor who once yelled at the pizza delivery guy for parking too close to her roses. The same neighbor who had argued with the mailman about how loudly his truck door slammed. If anyone was bold or nosy enough to borrow my charger, it was her. So I decided to test my theory. I moved my security camera just slightly, angling it toward the driveway. And that night, I left the charger coiled neatly, like bait. Midnight came, then 1 a.m. Silence. But around 2:15, the motion alert on my phone buzzed. And there she was. Karen, in her pajamas, robes swaying, creeping into my driveway like she owned it. She grabbed the cable with zero hesitation, plugged it right into her car, and stood there humming, like she'd done this 100 times before. That was the proof I needed. But instead of confronting her immediately, I wanted to make sure the trap would snap shut in a way she couldn't wiggle out of. So I set my plan in motion. And the next morning, things escalated in a way Karen never expected. The next morning, I pretended like nothing had happened. I waved at Karen as she watered her garden, her oversized sunglasses hiding the smug little smirk on her face. She had no idea I'd caught her red-handed the night before, and that was exactly how I wanted it to be. But I wasn't going to let it slide. No, this wasn't about a few dollars of electricity. This was about principle, about someone believing they had the right to steal, and then smiling like the hero of the story. I reviewed the footage carefully. Every detail was crystal clear. Karen sneaking across the driveway, plugging in her car, standing there like a queen claiming her throne. She was even humming, like this was a routine chore she felt entitled to. Now I could have confronted her right away, but I knew Karen. She thrived on drama. She would deny everything, twist the story, maybe even rally the neighborhood to her side. No, I needed something stronger, undeniable proof and the perfect moment to spring it. So I set a trap. That evening, I ran an extension cable from a portable battery I kept in the garage. I connected it to the charger but left the main power disabled. From the outside, it looked perfectly normal, ready to deliver a full charge. But in reality, it was nothing but a decoy. If she tried again, all she'd get was a dead cable and, thanks to a new setting on my security cam, a loud, audible alert. Unauthorized usage detected. I didn't have to wait long. At precisely 2:11 a.m., the motion alert buzzed my phone again. I swiped it open, and there she was, like clockwork. Pajamas, a robe, the whole midnight burglar look. She grabbed the cable, shoved it into her car's port, and waited. But this time nothing happened. I swear the way her face twisted from smug satisfaction to pure confusion was priceless. She tapped her car's screen, unplugged and replugged, even gave the charger a little shake, as if shaking it would magically produce free electricity. And then the alert went off. A robotic voice boomed into the night. Unauthorized usage detected. Security alert has been triggered. Karen nearly jumped out of her slippers. She yanked the cable out like it was a snake about to bite her, spun around, and bolted back to her house. The camera caught the whole thing. Her wild eyes, her panicked expression, the cable slipping from her hands. But here's the thing about Karen. Embarrassment doesn't humble her. It fuels her. The next morning, she came storming down the street, hair half-brushed, clutching a coffee mug like it was a weapon. She didn't even knock. She just marched right up my driveway, yelling, "You can't just lock up community resources," she snapped, her voice carrying for half the block. "Community resources?" I asked, keeping my tone calm, almost amused. "Karen, that charger is mine. I paid for it, installed it on my property. It's not some public water fountain," she scoffed, shaking her head. "It's on the front of your house." "That makes it shared access. If you didn't want people using it, you should have hidden it in your garage. You can't be so selfish." Selfish. That was the word she chose. Me, the selfish one, for not wanting her to steal from me. I could feel my jaw clench, but I held it back. This was the moment I'd been waiting for. "Karen," I said slowly, "do you really want me to show you something?" Her eyes narrowed. "What?" I pulled out my phone, tapped the screen, and up popped the footage. There she was in glorious HD, creeping across the driveway, plugging in her car, humming like she owned the night. The color drained from her face. She stammered, pointing a finger at me like I was the villain. "You can't just record me without permission." "Oh, I can," I said. "It's my property, my driveway, my security system. And now," I tilted the phone. "My proof." She froze, mouth opening and closing like a fish gasping for air. For once, Karen had no comeback. At least not in that moment. But I knew this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Because when Karen's cornered, she doesn't surrender. She strikes back. And sure enough, just 2 days later, the real battle began. I should have known showing Karen the footage wouldn't end things. With Karen, humiliation never equals defeat. It equals vengeance. 2 mornings later, I walked out to grab my newspaper, and there it was, an official-looking envelope taped to my front door. In bold letters, stamped at the top, "Community Compliance Notice." My stomach tightened. I tore it open, skimmed the paper, and nearly laughed. Apparently, according to our homeowners association, exterior chargers were considered community amenities. Any resident, it claimed, had the right to reasonable use. Failure to comply could result in fines or legal action. It was ridiculous. Total nonsense. But at the bottom, signed in jagged, self-important handwriting, was the name Karen Whitmore, HOA Vice President. Of course. I crumpled the letter in my fist. This wasn't just about a charger anymore. This was Karen flexing her imagined authority, trying to twist the rules into weapons. And if I didn't fight back, she'd steamroll me, like she'd done to neighbors before. That evening, as I scrolled through emails, another notification popped up. An HOA board meeting was scheduled for Friday. My gut told me everything. It wasn't just a meeting. It was an ambush. Sure enough, when Friday arrived, the conference room at the community center was buzzing. Residents whispered in corners, folding chairs squeaked against the floor. And at the head of the table sat Karen, arms crossed like a queen awaiting her subjects. She cleared her throat, her voice booming through the room. "We need to address an issue that affects the harmony of our community. One of our residents," her eyes flicked straight to me, "has installed a charging station and is refusing to allow shared access." Gasps. Murmurs. A few heads turned my way, curious, some even disapproving. That was her strategy. Paint me as selfish? Pit me against everyone else? I stood slowly, letting the tension hang. "With all due respect," I said, steady but firm, "that charger is on my property. I paid for it, maintained it. It is not, and never has been, a community amenity. Karen smirked, waving her hand. Oh, but you see, once something is visible to the community, it becomes a matter of shared interest. That's the spirit of our HOA. We look after each other, share resources. Stealing is not sharing. I cut in. The room fell silent. A few people shifted in their seats, unsure whether to side with me or her. That's when I pulled out my phone. If anyone here thinks I'm exaggerating, maybe you should see this. I hit play. The footage appeared on the big screen. Karen sneaking across my driveway at 2 a.m., plugging in her car, startled by the alert. Crystal clear, undeniable. The whispers grew louder. One man even chuckled under his breath. Karen's face flushed crimson, her mouth tightening like a steel trap. She slammed her hand on the table. This is harassment. He's spying on me. On my own property, I said calmly. With a security camera. Perfectly legal. The board shifted uncomfortably. One woman cleared her throat, muttering, "It does look like trespassing." For a split second, I thought I had her cornered. I thought the truth would be enough. But Karen wasn't finished. Her eyes narrowed, and she leaned forward, voice dripping with venom. Fine. If you won't share willingly, then I'll take this further. I'll file a formal complaint. I'll make sure the city inspects your so-called installation. Let's see how legal it really is. A chill ran through me. Not because I'd done anything wrong, I hadn't, but because I knew Karen. She was relentless, vindictive. She wouldn't stop until she dragged this out. Made it ugly, maybe even costly. That night, as I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, I realized something. This wasn't about a charger anymore. It was about control. Karen couldn't stand the idea of someone telling her no, and if she wanted a war, well, I was ready to give her one. What I didn't know then was just how far she'd go. Because within a week, a city inspector would be knocking on my door, and behind that knock was Karen's hand guiding it all. The knock came early on a Tuesday morning. Sharp, official, almost too polite. When I opened the door, a man in a city badge stood there, clipboard in hand. Behind him, barely out of sight, was Karen, peeking from across her yard, arms folded like a general watching her troops advance. "Good morning," the inspector said. "We've received a complaint about an unpermitted electrical installation on your property." "I'll need to take a look." I forced a smile. "Of course. Come right in. I wasn't nervous, not really. My charger was installed by a licensed electrician, permits and inspections already cleared. Everything was by the book. But this wasn't about the charger. It was about Karen trying to bury me under bureaucracy, hoping something, anything, would stick. The inspector walked slowly, checking wires, jotting notes. Karen hovered at the edge of the driveway, pretending to prune her roses, but every few seconds her eyes flicked over, waiting, hoping. Finally, the inspector looked up. "Everything seems in order. Professionally installed, grounded correctly, permits on file." He trailed off, flipping through his clipboard. Karen couldn't hold back. She stormed closer, voice shrill. But it's a community hazard. Cars lining up, blocking driveways, wasting power. And it's on the front of the house, so it's practically public property." The inspector raised a hand, calm, firm. "Ma'am, with respect, this installation is 100% legal. It is not public property. It's his." He pointed squarely at me. Karen's face turned scarlet. For a moment, I thought steam might actually come out of her ears. "You don't understand," she snapped. "He's been spying on me, recording me at night." "That's illegal." I pulled my phone from my pocket, scrolled, and showed the inspector the time-stamped footage. "On my own driveway," I said evenly. "Security system, standard placement. Perfectly legal. And it only caught one person trespassing. Her." The inspector leaned in, watched for a few seconds, then straightened with a sigh. "I see no violations here. If anything, you might want to consider filing a trespassing complaint. Karen's jaw dropped. Well, what? No. He's twisting everything. You don't know him like I do. The inspector cut her off. Ma'am, this matter is closed. If you continue to interfere, you'll be the one facing consequences. It was glorious, watching her unravel in real time, her grand plan crumbling. She tried to stammer a reply, but no words came. She spun on her heel and stormed back toward her house, muttering under her breath about corruption and unfair treatment. But I wasn't done. That evening, I uploaded a trimmed clip from my security footage to the neighborhood group chat. Not the whole embarrassing saga, just enough. Karen sneaking into my driveway, plugging into my charger like it was a public kiosk. Captioned simply, PSA, please don't use other people's chargers without permission. The effect was immediate. Replies flooded in. Some laughed. Others expressed disbelief. One neighbor typed, wow, I thought she was kidding when she said she shared your charger. Another added, this is classic Karen. By the next morning, Karen's reputation wasn't just dented, it was shattered. She wasn't the self-appointed queen of the neighborhood anymore. She was the punchline, and that's when the real resolution began. For the first time since I'd moved here, neighbors started waving when they passed my driveway. Some even came up to apologize, saying they'd believed Karen's stories before but now saw the truth. The balance of power had shifted, and not in her favor. But if you know Karen, you know she doesn't go down without one last desperate swing. And that swing, well, it came just days later when she decided to bring the police into it. Just when I thought the storm had finally passed, Karen played her last card. It was a Saturday morning when a patrol car pulled up in front of my house. 2 officers stepped out, calm but serious. And there, standing on the curb with her arms crossed, was Karen, smiling like she'd already won. She's been trespassing on my property, I said before she could twist the narrative. I've got it all on video! Karen jumped in, voice dripping with fake outrage. No! He's harassing me, recording me without permission, and refusing to share his so-called community charger. The officers exchanged a look. One of them asked to see the footage. I pulled out my phone, queued up the video, and handed it over. They watched quietly as Karen crept into my driveway at 2 in the morning, plugged in her car, and jolted at the security alert. The silence afterward was deafening. Finally, the officer turned to Karen. Ma'am, that's trespassing. If you continue this behavior, you'll be facing charges. Do you understand? Her jaw dropped. But the second officer cut her off. This is clear evidence. We're not here to debate HOA politics. Stay off his property, and just like that, the fight was over. Karen muttered something under her breath, stormed back toward her house, and slammed the door hard enough to rattle her windows. She didn't set foot on my driveway again. In the days that followed, the neighborhood shifted. People who once avoided me now nodded in respect. Some even thanked me for standing up, saying Karen had bullied them too, but they'd never dared to push back. My charger remained exactly what it always was, mine and Karen. She faded into the background, her empire of control crumbling with every passing day. Sometimes, the smallest things, like a charger, can expose the biggest truths. That entitlement has limits, that bullies only win if you stay silent, and that sometimes, the best way to deal with a Karen is to let her hang herself with her own rope. So if you enjoyed this story, hit that like button, subscribe for more neighborhood drama, and let me know in the comments. What would you have done if Karen tried to steal your power?